Just give me a buzz. Lean on me, yeah. When you're not strong, and I'll be your friend.
And we are live again, Eduardo.live. And today I have two special guests with me. This is a New Year's special. I have been waiting so long to do this episode with Kevin Reader besides me here, Malcolm Larri. And it's two amazing person. Like Malcolm Larri is the founder of Brave Personal Development. He's a leadership and culture consultant actually at Hammer & Borg and the TEDx host. Kevin Reader, my mindfulness sensei that I learned a lot about when it comes to mindfulness, and actually founder of a new company. He's a mind trainer at Mind Lab, is the company name actually. And if I have to credit two persons, I would love to say, like, on my top 10 list of the people that influenced me the most into like living the life that I want as a high achiever without burning out and with my own tempo, I would say. That's important to say. And also understanding company culture deeply. These are the two gentlemen you have today that I would say I could credit a lot of this knowledge to. So we will start with you, Malcolm.
Hey.
Like your passion, your drive that you have that is so contagious. Tell us, like, where did it start? What is your first memory that propelled you to where you are today?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Well, if I go right back to where I think the spark happened, it was on a Saturday night. I was home when I was 15 or 16 years old, and this black and white film came on the television. And it was a story about an architect who wanted to build these amazing glass skyscrapers before anybody else was doing it. It was a classic story of one man against the world kind of thing. And later I researched and found out that the film was called The Fountainhead with Gary Cooper, you know, the beautiful, stoic, handsome dude. But there's a line in that film that just, I don't know why, but it just set off a light bulb in me. There was this scene where Howard Rourke, who's an amazing architect, is having a conversation with Peter Keating, who's a terrible architect. And Peter Keating says, "Would you design a building and let me put my name on it?" And he said, "Why would I do that?" And he goes, "Because it's a public housing project and I want to help people." And then Howard Rourke said something that just, I don't know why, but it blew my mind. He said, "Peter, before you can do things for other people, you must become a person who can get things done." And I was just like, boom, I don't know why it was this light bulb moment. And from that point on, 15, 16 years old, I went on this mission to become a person who could get things done. I didn't even really know what that meant, but I just went out in the world with that kind of framework to explore the world that way. And over the years, what I found was that the people who could really get things done were the people who could engage other people, they could manage themselves, they were really amazing at pitching and sharing ideas, but they were extremely centered in themselves. And so after I modeled some of the people, you know, that could do this really, really well, one of my bosses who saw a spark in me sent me off to do a course on NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And that gave me the toolbox that I needed to then share what I knew with and what I was learning with other people. So for the last 25 years, I've worked with individuals, teams, companies to help them reach their full potential and, you know, help them live their values and live their work and their life in a way that is in alignment with those values. And I get so much satisfaction because, you know, my values, my personal values are, you know, kindness, growth, and honor. And so I've managed to align my life in a way that every day I get to experience growth because I'm a coach and I need to keep growing to be where my clients are or ahead of them. Kindness, I get to help people every single day, and honor. And I get to have the privilege of working with people on their dreams, their fears, their hopes, their troubles. And so I'm in that kind of circle of honor that you're in when you're coaching somebody. So really, I always say I feel like I fell up the ladder in life. I had so many blessings along the way that enabled me to get here. But now that I'm here, I just feel like that really at the age of 52, the only thing I can really do with my life that's of value is to give it away to other people and help other people. That just seems to be the place that you get to.
I love that story, and I have to reflect on what you said on, like, like the end, because I think like after all these years, like you been like grinding for a passion, the biggest pleasure I have today is to make others grow. Actually, I don't need diplomas. I don't need no bonuses. Like that is not my driver. Like I have only two drivers today, and that is learn from other passionate people what they know and share it with like the next generation, right? Or teach people something. And when you see them grow, that's like such a rush for me today, you know. And I was like, we are both members of One Golden Nugget, that I would say is the most empowering, like growing network today that I have actually experienced, you know. And what would be your like one golden nugget to the listeners from this journey that you have? Like, give us one golden nugget, the Malcolm golden nugget.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have many, but I would say that, I'll give you one that I think is the most appropriate to this moment in time, because we're, sort of, I think every golden nugget of wisdom, has to exist in a context, right? So I think that, right now, the motto I live by is one day at a time is enough. And I can't think of a better time to have that viewpoint, to actually just focus on the day, have a great day, do great work, eat good food, love the people you love. Just do the day you're in really, really great, and then let tomorrow come, deal with that one. And you get more of a natural evolution. I think people right now are going through extreme struggles, and this is kind of opening up the conversation to where we want to go. But, I think right now, we have this enormous amount of uncertainty in our environment. We have a pandemic, we have the US election chaos. It looks like Brexit's about to be a complete mess. So we're sort of surrounded by a lot of uncertainty. But I think most people, if they actually stopped and looked around them, and Kevin, you'd be really on board with this sort of here and now kind of philosophy. But if you actually stand in your kitchen, or, everything's actually fine. Like where you are right now, everything's good. So I think one day at a time, be really present where you are, do great work there, and great things will follow.
I love that nugget actually. It reminds me of my grandmother actually, because I told this story before on the show, but I was like suffering. Like it was so much problems in my life, with my business, with myself, actually, my relation that I had at that time. I went to my grandmother's house, and she like, ¿Qué pasa, mi hijo? Like, because she noticed, right? What's wrong, my son? And I said, like, I don't want to stress you. Like, she's my grandmother, right? Like, but I'm not having a good time. And she just looked at me and she said, like, how I wish I could be you at this moment, that had all your like life ahead. I'm soon dead, my son, but you're still breathing. So battle it out. And that changed me forever, because that is when I started to feel gratitude, like what you say, right? Like in every day we can wake up, we can do something, we can improve, we can try to save, even if we fail, right? So your nugget is so beautiful. I really like that one. Have you published it on One Golden Nugget, this one?
Yeah, I have spoken about it on One Golden Nugget, and I think that's a great platform. I think also, with social media as we move forward, I think, with social media, I think one of the trends that will come up is you'll be able to select much more what comes into your feed and what doesn't. And I think when that happens as well, we're all going to have the opportunity to tune out a lot of negativity that comes in. But I just think that let's focus on what we can be certain about. I think that in 2020, if we start to talk about well-being, the thing that is making most people distressed is the level of uncertainty. So how do you generate more certainty for yourself on a daily basis? And I think, being present is really a big piece of that. And I'd love to hear what Kevin thinks about that. But I really think that if we actually, this is something I've been talking a lot with leaders. I've been out working with, especially the last 8 weeks, it's just been workshop after workshop for companies, helping people to stay engaged, to stay well, to recreate their working life in a way that supports them. But one of the big things that I've been talking about is making decisions and certainty. and talking about, if you have this timeline that you imagine about the future, and humans can imagine the future, but no other animal can do that. There's no antelope in Africa that has a 5-year plan. It has one plan, which is eat grass and don't get eaten. That's it. But, for the rest of us, we're making plans and thinking about our retirement, all of that. So we have this ability to, have a very long future timeline in our heads. But when the environment gets disrupted, we can no longer project into the future. That creates a lot of distress for us. So one of the things that I think's critically important is to shorten that timeline down until you feel a sense of certainty again. So at different points in this year, my future planning got down to 3 days ahead because, at the beginning of this pandemic, when all the conferences were being cancelled and all my appointments were being cancelled and all this chaos, it was like there was no way to work further ahead than that without getting into like a lot of distress. So I was like, okay, let's shorten that future timeline, bring it back closer to us until I experience certainty. And then once I experience certainty, then I will, just use that as the time frame I can cope with. So at some points it might have been 3 days, some points it might have been a week. Right now I'm quite comfortable thinking about Q1, but as soon as I start thinking about March, April, or April, May, June, it's like I don't know what's going to happen then. I got no idea. So I go back into uncertainty and stress. So I keep my planning close to me. I try and stay in the day that I'm in. What do you think, Kevin? I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm in your domain now.
Before I let Kevin in, I will do something I never done in the show because this is such a special moment for me. I'm going to take a selfie live on there. Thank you so much. Okay, Kevin, I let you in here to answer Malcolm's question.
Thank you, Eduardo, and thank you, Malcolm. And thanks for the introduction. I think the only thing you missed from your introduction was that something that Malcolm called me a week ago or so, that he said, be out and out about being a corporate hippie, And I think at one time, I've been working in corporate business for about 20 odd years. And I think at one time they called me their departmental Buddhist. So I think you were spot on, Malcolm. Yeah, okay, I'll admit today as well, I'm the corporate hippie on the team here, probably.
With facts, I have to add, that is the main difference.
Oh yeah, hippies always have
Kevin
facts.
comes with the research to back it up. It's not only talk.
Right. And that's a nice segue into, as the old hippies used to say, that you are what you see. And if you flip that around, I mean, that's my golden nugget was from one of my Buddhist teachers years ago, a Buddhist nun, and she said to me, just remember, Kevin, that you are not the center of your universe. Ego speaking, I always thought that, I was a really important guy in their little community at the time, I thought. And she said, but there's some truth in that, of course. And the truth in that is that you're at the center of your perspective of the universe. And that's really important because nobody else has that perspective. It's only the Kevin perspective on the universe. And there's only one of those. And it was just like, and then she started to back me up and say, well, if this is a nugget, then perspective means that your perspective is valuable because it's reflected through all the gifts that you should be bringing out into the world, which I think you've both spoken to at the moment, your missions in life. And I don't have a grand mission, but I mean, I see it in that way. In any way I can polish, make transparent, share the gifts that I have through the work that I do and the relationships I have, that fills me full of meaning and purpose, and I'm a happy guy. I'm a happy version of myself. And just responding to that opening that you gave me there, Malcolm, about what I would call these days COVID coping strategies, maybe that I've been speaking to some of the people I've been coaching and in my courses about. I don't believe, in my experience, that I should be trying to find the certain points in life. As a Buddhist, I know that everything changes all the time. That's been my experience. That's my reality. And what I think is a really good coping strategy is actually, well, there's two. One is to try and meet the future that's coming towards us all the time in unpredictable ways as a thrill rather than a threat. And I think, not from NLP, but from Gestalt psychology, there was a founder called Fritz Perls, and he said something like, get out of your mind and come to your senses. And what he meant by that was just that if you take a moment to get away from your incessant mind buzz that's driving us forward, take a deep breath, then you'll be able to meet the future in a much calmer way. And it might turn into thrill rather than threat, because deep breath is the difference, he said, between me meeting that perceived threat as fear and stress and me meeting it as like thrilling and exciting. So all I need to change that around, and it doesn't need to be certain for me, is just to keep breathing deeply like a corporate hippie should, and then things will be good. I'll figure it out. There'll be clarity and I can move forward. And the other coping strategy is really to be willing to be organized, as well as we're always trying to do, organize our lives and our relationships and the business and all that stuff, but to be willing to be organized. And that means that you have to do, as Fritz Perls was saying, that you have to sort of, out your mind, come to your senses and be patient, and not to push all the time, and just be open for what arises and be discomfortable. Start getting comfortable being in that discomfort of not knowing. So I think that's where I'm practicing personally at the moment, and that's where I'm trying to share my experiences with people who are trying to cope with this unpredictability and the frustration of everything just being like a crazy South American Latino dance of like, one step forward, good today, and then okay, 2 steps towards Eduardo, 4 steps towards Malcolm, 2 steps backwards, and all that stuff. That's the only way I can move mindfully through the unpredictability.
I would say that for me, you're not a corporate hippie. You're the corporate heart, I would say, the corporate soul. That is with facts, actually. And there are so many things that I learned from Kevin. I don't know even where to begin, actually. But as my mindfulness sensei that guided me to become a better person, a better father, I would say, a better leader, and also to heal, I think 2 things I would have to say that was, for me, was so relieving. It was like accepting myself and liking myself. That was hard for me to do, because I don't like when people appreciate me. And I think it comes from a life of being pressed down, that I was worth nothing. I was not supposed to succeed with anything in life, according to people. And that took many years to wash away, actually. So I have a hard time to accept when people say, like, thank you to Eduardo. I want to thank people. I want to lift people up. But I've had so hard time to accept that thing, Yeah, so I'm getting a little emotional here, because Kevin helped me with that, actually.
You're a heavy lifter yourself, brother. You know that. You do some heavy lifting of yourself and other people. Yeah.
So
like what we're doing now.
That I got very emotional, but it was important for me to fully heal, and I thank Kevin for helping me with that, actually. So I would like to ask Kevin the same question that I asked Malcolm. What brought you here to be this passionate person about well-being that you are? Like, what is your earliest memory that made you propel into your destiny, I would say?
The big question, Malcolm, is so much more polished at doing this than I am. I'm not going to go back to childhood trauma and my birth and all those other things that I've talked about on stage just very recently. And if you want to see anything about that, go to, we'll post a link afterwards to a video which talks about how I've managed to make good life out of traumatic early childhood experiences. But I don't want to go there now, because I don't need to go further back than about 4 years ago, when I contracted Lyme's disease, which in this part of the world, some of the doctors basically look at you when you start talking about it and say, go and see a psychologist. So I had to find a healing process, and that took some time and took me quite close to having to admit that my own mortality. Only the 3rd time in my life I've faced death in a very real way. And this time I had two 20-some children to think about who were around me. And when I saw that things could get critical, I had to have some long conversations with my son Luke, who's 25, and my daughter Amali, who's 23. And to say that if we don't have much time together, what's important for us to do? What's important in your lives? How can I support that? And that panned out into a few trips down memory lane together. And it also panned out into 2 guide rails, which I've followed in my life ever since. And one of them was more or less around sustainability. One of the kids was really, really focused on, hey, what is your generation going to give to my generation? Is it going to be a livable ecosystem, or is it not? So sustainability became one of the goals, and now that's sort of morphed into social sustainability. And the other focus really was, it's now morphed into mindfulness, really, is attention, awareness, being present, and being alive and responsible and honest and authentic in your life. So I've had those 2 guide rails, and I thank the kids for that. And after a while, after I got started on my healing process again and was able to go back into the world and be active again, which is only a couple of years ago now, then I started to see that my corporate heart personality could be turned around, because that is an experience of being inside the corporate world.
Because you were a storyteller, right?
I was a corporate storyteller and a communications consultant, yeah. So I wanted to sort of use that in alignment with sustainability and mindfulness, awareness, and all that sort of stuff. So in the end, I came up with the idea of Mind Lab, which is a sort of co-creation process and space, and a series of programs which brings those things together, brings together the best of neuroscience, the best of positive psychology, and tries to tailor this for organizations, really. How do we stay aware? How do we stay compassionate? How do we build good teams? How do we back each other up? How do we bring out the best of ourselves, as my teacher was telling me, so that my perspective comes into the world? But I don't think it's the only perspective. I'm not the center of the universe. I'm part of all this wonderful universes that we can share with each other, if that makes sense.
That's, for me now, it makes a lot of sense. Before it didn't, but now it actually does. And yeah, Kevin is so humble. He's actually one of the big drivers for mindfulness in Oslo, I would say, like, and a big influencer here in Norway, and a person with a lot of research behind him. And we're coming back to the facts, the numbers behind it all. But first, we will go back to Malcolm to talk about a hot topic of mine is company culture. And that's actually what I teach when I mentor like startups, is how to build an empowering culture of growth, but also of heart. And I love your quote that I want to have it on the wall, like, no caveman, no. Please explain that to us, and the importance of company culture from your perspective.
Yeah, well, the whole no caveman, no thing comes when I do workshops on diversity, inclusion, and bias, and I talk about that. Having bias is human, and bias has sort of become in the culture a code word for being racist or sexist. But bias is actually just a scale of liking or disliking things. That's all bias is. But one of the things is to understand that your inner caveman, the one that wants you to survive, always speaks first. Neuroscience shows that, the primitive part of the brain communicates to you much, much faster than this amazing human modern brain that we have. And so, the first voice you're always going to hear is the caveman. So when the caveman comes up and starts telling you that, somebody is, this guy's a corporate hippie, why should I listen to him? You go, no, caveman, no. And you get out of your own bubble, you get out of your own echo chamber, and you put the caveman back in the corner, and you start thinking with your amazing creative frontal lobe instead. So no caveman, no. I've had people screaming that in conference rooms all over Europe. But one of the things that I just want to pick up on, because I've only got a few minutes left before I have to jump off and do a workshop, is that I just want to pick up on a couple of things that Kevin said about, how do we manage this time? And I think everything you said was just great, Kevin. I really agree, about, the breath and how important it is to manage yourself. But I also think it's really important to know your strategies. Like, to actually sit down and think about, what is my strategy that I go through when things go wrong? Because you have a sequence of emotional responses or psychological or cognitive responses that you go through as your program. And the chances of you interrupting that program, if you're a grown human animal like myself, is actually quite low. But if you simply know what it is consciously, if you become aware of it, then you can let yourself go through your process and not experience as much stress. Let me explain this to you. So most people, when they experience something that they weren't expecting, if we get something nice, we call it a surprise, right? If something that we're not expecting turns up and it's nice, we call it a surprise. If something turns up and it's not nice, it's a problem, right? So we have this way of thinking about the unexpected turning up. But what happens is that, if you look at people, they generally fall into two categories. So they either go into a security orientation, where they try and get back some sense of security. That's their first thing they do. And some people have the opposite, where they go, oh, what's the opportunity here? Or what could I create out of this? And one of the things, I was just working with a leadership team in one of Sweden's biggest fashion companies, and we were talking about, how did you respond to the pandemic and the work from home thing and everything? And I said, did you notice other people responded really differently to you? And they said, yeah. And I said, has that caused a lot of conflict? And they were like, yeah. So it's like, let's map out. Let's look. Do you go first into security, or do you go into opportunity? And if you go, and there's no right or wrong, it's just the way you do it. But some people did security, and then slowly over time they did opportunity. And there were some people who were like a tennis ball that went between opportunity, security, and they were just going like this. And so, but once you map out your own way of dealing with things and you become aware of it consciously, when it actually turns up, I'll admit, I'm a bit of a drama queen when it comes to things that aren't working. It's like, so I have about 3 minutes of drama queen, and then I go calm, and then I go into problem solver. So I let the drama queen have his 3 minutes, and then I go and make a cup of coffee, and then I come back and I solve the problem. But that's just my process. But I'm aware of it, so it doesn't really affect me. I just know I have to go through that process for my system to work, for me to feel centered. But I also love what you said, Kevin, about, if I focus on the breath. And by the way, Fritz Perls was one of the people that was modeled when NLP was being created, because NLP was created by modeling amazing therapists, and he was one of them. But what I'd really love people to do, when, as a little bit of homework, is think about, what is my coping strategy when unexpected things turn up, when things go wrong? Do I immediately go into panic? And it's really fun to do this in groups. If anybody here's got a group or a team, do this as a little exercise and see, how people respond in the team. Because some people go really loud and dramatic like me, and some people go really quiet and looking around, trying to gather all the information. So people have different coping strategies. And one of the things that I think is really great to do is just to get to know yourself. Because if you know yourself, you can manage yourself. And we have this, Kevin will be on board with this, but we have this ability to observe ourselves, which is really incredible. This ability to observe our own processes while they're happening. I don't know how that works, but it's pretty incredible opportunity to be able to just put yourself in the observer position, see how you do it, take some notes, and then go back into being yourself. It's an incredible gift that humans have. But I think when it comes to company culture, the thing that I would really encourage organizations to do would be to center themselves around a value proposition And by that, I mean everybody in the company understands the one thing, that one promise that the company's making to the world, and make sure they never break that promise. That's a whole other podcast or, live chat. But one of the things is that I work with about 100 startups a year, teaching them how to pitch and present their ideas. And the thing that is almost always missing is that central value proposition that allows the company to, products and services have to orbit around that promise. They can change, but the promise can't, So, but I think when it comes to the people culture, I think we're going into a whole new era of corporate culture. And I think that it'll be one where it's very much human first. And companies will not be able to put profit before people much longer, simply because it will be too damaging for the brand, and it will just not be a sustainable business model not to put the people at the center of the business and the products and services, around that. So, and I think that's going to be an amazing change. And I think there's a generational change that's coming as well. There's a new generation of people coming in to the workforce that are going to bring in a whole new set of values to the workplace. And those people are going to become leaders. And that's going to be a huge generational shift. And I'm really excited about it.
Before I let you go, I have to just address two things. Like companies like Red Hat, they invite me to speak, to technology conferences. And what I speak about is about people. I don't talk about technology, even that I'm a digital expert, right? And what I'm saying is that it's people first, process second, technology third. That is what is. That is the future for all the companies. I strongly believe that, because as long as it's people buying, loving, hating our products, they should matter the most. As long as we are doing these products with passion and heart, we should matter the most. The equation cannot be turned around in any other way. And acceptance, what you said, and I think that was the latest gift I got from Kevin, was acceptance of everything that happens to me. And it's such a relief to just accept. And I think we are all passionate people like us. We are all drama queens, right?
Awesome. Guys, I've got to run because I'm going to do a workshop in 10 minutes for about 200 people. But I just want to say thank you so much, Eduardo, for all the goodwill you bring to our community and you put out into the business world. Kevin, keep being that corporate hippie. We need them. And I tell you, man, your time has come. It's your time. This has never been a better time for the message and the work that you're doing. It's never been more important, and it's never been more critical. So go for it. And I wish you both a fantastic Christmas and a really exciting and prosperous 2021.
How do listeners contact you? LinkedIn, right?
Yep. Jump on LinkedIn. Join me. I'd love to chat with you. I coach people privately if they have challenges. I coach leadership teams. I do kickoffs. I do pitch coaching, presentation coaching. Just come and say hello, just for the hell of it. Be great to chat.
Thank you, Malcolm. It was amazing.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Lean on me, yeah.